Okay, so when you think about solving our planet's biggest environmental challenges, what comes to mind? Probably scientists, right? Engineers, maybe tech innovators? But what if the real solution isn't just about better data or some new gadget? What if it's about telling a better story?
So why do we even need a new approach? Well, first, you got to wrap your head around the sheer scale of the crisis we're facing. This isn't just one problem we can check off a list. No, it's like a cascade of issues all tangled up together.
I mean, just look at this list. It's overwhelming. We're talking about things happening at the molecular level, like genetic engineering, all the way up to the planetary scale with global warming. And you see the domino effect, right? The ice caps melt, the seas rise, people are forced from their homes, becoming climate refugees. It is a total cascade of crises, all connected, all happening right now. And it's touching every single part of our lives, from the plastic in the ocean to the very air we breathe.
But check out this quote. This right here, it reframes the entire problem. It's saying, hey, these aren't just scientific failures or ecological oopsies. Nope. At their absolute core, these are human problems. They're the direct result of the choices we all make as individuals and as societies based on the stories we tell ourselves about what a good life is even supposed to look like. Okay, so if these are fundamentally human problems, then it kind of makes sense that a purely scientific approach might be, well, missing a huge piece of the puzzle, right? This old way we have of isolating problems, putting them in neat little boxes, and handing them off to specialists, it might actually be what's holding us back.
I mean, think about it for a second. We have absolutely brilliant climate scientists, biologists, engineers, all doing amazing work in their own fields. But the problem is, they're often working in silos. That knowledge gets trapped. You've got a biologist who understands an ecosystem inside and out. But are they talking to the historian who knows how that same piece of land has been used for hundreds of years? Or the economist who sees the market forces that are pushing for its destruction? Usually, not so much.
So that's the big question, isn't it? If working in these little bubbles isn't getting the job done, how in the world do we break down these walls? How do we get everybody in the same room actually talking to each other?
Well, the answer is a pretty new and I think incredibly exciting field that's designed to do exactly that. It's called the environmental humanities. And its whole job? It's all about building those bridges.
So what is it? Well, at its heart, the environmental humanities challenges us to totally rethink the relationship between nature and culture. It basically argues we can't treat them as two separate things anymore. It's a completely new way of thinking, and it's built from the ground up to tackle the urgency of all those problems we just talked about.
And let's be super clear, this is not about replacing science, not at all. It's about creating a much richer conversation. Think of it like this. The scientists give us the what, the hard data. The social scientists can explain the why. Why do we humans behave this way? And then the artists and the humanists, they help us with the how. How do we feel about all this? And how can we even begin to imagine a different future? It's about finally using every single tool in our toolkit. And just look at the kinds of experts we're talking about bringing to the table. You get a historian who can show you the deep roots of a modern-day conflict over land. You get a filmmaker who can take a bunch of complicated data and turn it into a story that actually makes you feel something and want to act. Each one of these fields gives us a totally different but totally crucial lens to see the crisis, not as just a bunch of numbers on a chart, but as the messy, complex human story it truly is.
Okay, I know what you're thinking. This sounds great in theory, right? But what does it actually look like in the real world? Like, how does putting a philosopher on a team with a bunch of geneticists actually help anything? Let's dive into a really fascinating example. Let's talk about something straight out of science fiction, but it's real. De-extinction. The idea of bringing an extinct species back from the dead. I'm talking about resurrecting something like the woolly mammoth or the passenger pigeon. This is the perfect example of a problem where science alone just isn't going to cut it.
Obviously, you need the scientists, right? You need the geneticists to figure out the DNA, the biologists to understand what the animal would need to survive. But then you bring in the geographer who has to ask, where are we even going to put this thing? Does its habitat even exist anymore? Then the economist chimes in. Okay, who's paying for all this, and what's it going to do to the local economy? And maybe most importantly, you need the historian to tell us why it went extinct in the first place, so we don't just make the exact same mistakes all over again.
Because here's the bottom line. The biggest questions with de-extinction aren't scientific at all. They're ethical. Just because we can do it, does that mean we should?
What are the consequences we can't even predict yet? How is this going to affect the people and the ecosystems that are there right now? That's when you need the philosophers, the sociologists, the storytellers to help us wrestle with the human side of this unbelievably powerful technology. And really, this is the ultimate goal. The whole point of environmental humanities isn't just for it to be some interesting idea people talk about in a university. It's about creating a powerful, brand new pathway for real, actual change by finally connecting all the dots.
Yeah, this definition pretty much says it all. The goal is to converge all this knowledge, bring it all together from every field, from different cultures, to really analyze our problems. And here's the key part, to actually engage with public policy and political decision-making. The idea is to take this huge, more complete understanding and put it right into the hands of the people who are actually making the rules.
And here's the pathway it proposes. It's simple, but it's so powerful. You start with people. You have to understand our different cultures, our values, our stories. Then, you bring in that whole diverse team of experts to get the full picture. And finally, you channel all that combined knowledge toward making smarter, more complete policies and decisions. Simple as that.
So that kind of leaves us with this one last thought to chew on. For a really long time, the story we've told about the environment has been all about data. Charts, graphs, scary warnings. It's been a story told mostly by science. But what the environmental humanities is suggesting is that maybe, just maybe, what we really need is a new story. A different kind of story, one that's full of history and art and ethics and a much deeper understanding of who we are. So the question is, what happens when we finally start telling that story?